Pardon the interruption, but I'm Pablo Torre, and with Mike and Tony off, I am a little afraid that people are going to see me as, like, the captain of the B team.
I'm Mina Kimes, and Pablo, don't worry, no one sees you as the captain.
Okay. So, first off, I was the captain of my Lincoln Douglas debate team in high school. So, factually inaccurate by you. They saw me as the captain. Still today, maybe.
Stereotypes here, Pablo. Out the
Yes.
gate.
Varsity debate is a sport. Welcome to PTI, incidentally, with Mike and Tony off. I am joined by my, yes, great friend, but also mortal enemy from NFL Live, Mina Kimes. There is that army of simps. But we begin today with tonight's sold-out Summer League debut of Victor Wembanyama. Because, Mina, the #1 pick in the draft is going to take the court against the #2 pick, Brandon Miller, in a matchup of, various Spurs and Hornets, I suppose. But Wembanyama also learned today that no charges will be filed for the incident between his security team and Britney Spears, which is a sentence that I really never thought I would utter. But my question for you is whether it's appropriate to have really high expectations for Wembanyama in tonight's debut.
It is impossible not to, Pablo, for all of the obvious basketball reasons you have heard on this network for months now. Greatest prospect since
months.
LeBron, 7'3" demigod, but also because the level of hype is such that he has reached TMZ. I bring the story up not to litigate who is in the wrong. I am not touching that story with a Wembanyama-size poll, but I do think it's worth taking a moment to recognize the incredibleness of the fact that one of the most famous pop stars in the history of the world approached a French teenager who has never played in the NBA because she was a fan. That is the level of hype we are dealing with. Obviously, tonight will not be a referendum on his NBA career, but all of the buzz is merited and inescapable.
Yeah, there's a poetry to this ridiculous story colliding with his debut in America as a professional because, look, Victor Wembanyama told our friend JJ Redick, Mina, I don't feel pressure. That's his whole position on all of this. And I admire his speaking a psychology into existence because you need that when the pressure is either Britney Spears' hand or all of the headlines that you recounted. But the thing of Britney, the thing about it, it was perfect because here was a real-life physical manifestation, like a ghost of Christmas future of celebrity in America.
Yeah.
Here was a person, a former child star herself, sharing a Vegas residency in the way that Wembanyama's about to, telling him, trying to tell him, you might become like me. And he's saying, nope, I got this, it's all cool. And I think it's a really hard thing to make your brain impervious to all of the pressure.
Well, now I'm just thinking about Wembanyama posting Instagrams of him dancing in front of a camera in his home like Britney. I think you're right. I think it's a fair point that this little test, if you want to call it that, is probably more challenging than anything he's going to face at this point in his NBA career. Although I do think it is worth noting that the two other young stars we will see, first Brandon Miller, eventually Scoot Henderson, were also very highly touted prospects that could have gone #1 in other drafts. So I do think it's going to be compelling to watch all of them go head-to-head and weigh them against each other.
Yeah, I think it's funny, Mina, because the next cycle of this is for Wembanyama to be treated as this mountain that everybody wants to summit, people want to dunk on him, all of that. If he struggles, I just wonder, we make underdogs out of literally everybody. LeBron James is himself in his own conception an underdog. I just wonder how long it'll take for us to think of Victor Wembanyama, skinny Victor Wembanyama, as a guy that we feel for if things are not going well.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever looked down on that guy. All right, let's move to baseball and Shohei Ohtani's future with the Angels. The team opens a 2-game set against the Dodgers tonight, having lost 3 straight, 11 of 15, and Mike Trout to wrist surgery. John Paul Morosi writes on MLB.com that few in baseball see the Angels trading Ohtani before the deadline. First, he could decide to stay, even if the Angels miss the playoffs. And second, he's great for ratings and sponsorships. Pablo, if you were running the Angels, would you trade Ohtani?
If I had this power, there is no way in hell I am trading Shohei Ohtani. And I understand that there is a rational basis for that argument, right? And I'll hear you out on it if you want to make it. But if I'm the GM of the Angels, the only way I am trading Shohei Ohtani is if Shohei Ohtani agrees to publicly, with like a notary present, publicly declare that I am going to leave the Angels at the end of this season. Because if I'm the GM of the team and I trade that guy, I believe the only precedent we have for Shohei Ohtani being traded literally got traded and cursed the franchise that he left. I just don't have the guts, Mina. I don't have the guts to trade this guy away.
You may be afraid of being remembered in this hypothetical scenario as the guy who traded away Ohtani, but the reality is your legacy is already cemented. You're the guy who wasted Ohtani's career. That is how you're going to be remembered, because Ohtani is not going to be an Angel next year. He doesn't need to do what you said and come out and say it out loud. We can all read between the lines. The guy has said he wants to win a championship, and LA, as we alluded to, appears to be farther than it was just a month ago from getting there. I mean, their chances of making the postseason at this point look slim, and the only thing worse than trading away Ohtani and losing him would be losing him for nothing, which seems to be the most likely outcome in all of this.
Yeah, my concern, though, even if I, let's say, work up the stones to say, okay, he's probably going to leave, I should get something back because otherwise he's just walking for nothing. I think a fair question is what's potentially fair value for half a season of a guy who just had the greatest month in June in the history of baseball. Like, no one has had that month offensively, and then no one, of course, has been the pitcher on top of it. I just think it's a losing hand, both on the level of value and then on the level of blame. Like, I just don't think you ever get it back. You never get any of that back.
I don't know how much they would get for him, but I can tell you this. It's a lot more than they're going to get when he walks out the door.
So the Angels obviously struggling already in their feelings, all that so. But the Mets, on the other hand, are somehow thriving suddenly. And last night's 9-zip pasting of the Diamondbacks made it now 5 wins in a row. And just last week, you might recall, owner Steve Cohen backed his manager and GM and blamed the team's recent struggles on the players, actually. And so he didn't rule out the idea of being a seller at the trade deadline. So should these recent results, Mina, should they give Cohen a reason to be a buyer instead?
This is tricky. It's actually trickier for me than the Angels because unlike the Angels, the Mets do have positive momentum. They also have better chances of making it into the playoffs, according to Fangraphs, based on their odds. But what they don't have, Pablo, is the sort of prospects they would need to pull off the kind of splashy trade that would actually make them contenders. At this point, they're just sniffing a wild card. The Braves, who we'll talk about later, are way out ahead of them. And I went back and I listened to Steve Cohen's press conference, and what struck me about it, just last week, is how logical he sounded. This is not a guy who is going to make a panic decision based on the fact that he's already poured an ungodly amount of money into this team. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he actually takes some of that money and uses it to get some of these aging stars off the roster, knowing that they're really not going to contend.
What I love about this story the most, and you used to be a real business reporter, so you appreciate this on this level too. I love how hard this is. I love how hard this is for Steve Cohen. The guy is one of the 50 richest people in America. He has spent more money on this baseball team than anyone has spent on a baseball team in the history of baseball. And he is lost. He's holding these press conferences where he's trying to impose reason and logic and rationality. And the reality is he's having a really tough time. And I think of a quote that Josh Harris, who is the incoming owner of the Commanders, current owner of the Sixers, said about like how hard it is to run and own a team. He said, no one cares about the price of polypropylene or whatever that chemical is, but they care about who's in the order, who's in the lineup for these teams. And Steve Cohen is trying to reckon with the fact, okay, my team isn't that good, but I'm the guy who's a master of the universe. So do I possibly bring my tail between my legs and sell at a deadline when I have all of the money in the world to play with?
Yeah, I think Steve knows this is an investing tenet. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Just because they have been winning doesn't mean they're going to continue to win. I've held back so many Wall Street references, by the way. I feel like I deserve a little bit of credit for that. I waited until then.
Yeah, I will say, it feels like in the Mets case, like past performance might actually be indicative of future results. But we should probably take a break, because coming up, as we head towards this All-Star break, have the Braves or the Reds been the more impressive National League team?
No Mariners talk?
Not yet. But read your bump. You got a bump.
Dave Lillard and James Harden both want to be traded. Which one is more likely to win a ring?
That is a master of business journalism. All right, it's time for the first game ever played on this show, back when Mina and I were about 7, I think. Toss up. Let's get the first one from the producer over the loudspeaker.
Toss up, more impressive National League team, the Reds or the Braves?
So the Reds and Braves are really good, and I have been trying to make a case for why the Braves are the answer to this question, so I will consult my notes inconspicuously located on this piece of paper, my Kornheiser-style statistics. They've won 10 of 11, Mina. They won 18 of 20. They won the World Series 2 years ago. They've made the playoffs 5 straight times, and all of that is really, really impressive. I think they're the better team. But if the verb is impressive, or the adjective is impressive, the verb is impress, I am impressed by Elly De La Cruz of the Reds more than anything. Elly is my final answer. The Reds are my final answer. Thank you very much.
The Braves are probably the correct answer if we're picking the most dominant team, the prohibitive favorite. But I agree with you, Pablo. The Reds are the fun answer. And they also are impressive relative to preseason expectations. This is a team that lost 100 games last year. As of late May, they were in last place in their own division, but they've turned things around largely on the strength of a youth movement. SI's Emma Baccelleri pointed out that since they've started 4 rookies in their active roster, they have gone like 26-1 or something, led by, of course, human firework, Elly De La Cruz. It is funny, though, that we're so entranced by the shiny object. Like, Ronald Acuna Jr. is 25, and I'm like, he's old news. Get him out of here. Give me the Reds, kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Elly De La Cruz is Olivia Rodrigo. Ronald Acuna is Britney Spears. I apologize to Ronald in this metaphor, but the reality, Mina, with the shiny object, they were literally distracted by this. The Nationals, Davey Martinez, the manager, pointed out, what's that thing at the end of his bat, that plastic thing that Elly De La Cruz uses? And I think he patted down like a TSA agent because that's how good he is. They're looking for reasons to say he's good for other than, his actual talent.
The word he used was antics, which if you ever want to make me root for a baseball team, complain about their antics, and I am all in.
Next.
Toss up, which trade-requesting NBA star is more likely to win a title? Damian Lillard or James Harden?
This is such a great question. It's such an amazing July question.
Of antics in this question.
It's great because within the question, sort of like a Matryoshka doll, are other questions, or rather how you answer this betrays how you feel about other things. Specifically, one, which team are both of these stars likely to actually be playing on, Dame and James Harden? And then when they join those teams, which of those teams are more likely to win a championship? So I will attempt to answer all of them at once. I think Dame is most likely going to be in Miami. I think James Harden is most likely going to return to your beloved 76ers, at least for some of the season. And considering those two pieces of those predictions, rather, I'm going to go ahead and pick Dame joining the team that was just in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, see, that was a beautiful, origami crane of a take that I fully disagree with. I disagree with it because, well, first off, James Harden, I don't want him back on the Sixers. Not feeling great about that. I am hopeful that, as I have texted you many, many times, Daryl Morey's up to some stuff. He's trying to move him away. But I'll take the terms of this question at face value and be really skeptical about whether Dame Lillard is actually going anywhere before the season starts. I just think that the Heat package that they're offering is bad. It's not compelling. Tyler Hero's not doing it for me. So why don't I just wait to midseason, to the deadline, string this thing out? And I also think, Mina, and I think both of us can probably relate to this, I don't think Dame Lillard is good at cosplaying disgruntled. I think he is a pleaser. I think he wants to be liked. I think the idea that he's threatening unhappiness, all this toxicity coming out of Dame Lillard, like Anthony Davis wearing the That's All Folks t-shirt, I don't think that's coming. And I think the Blazers are going to wait it out longer than he would like, but because it's him, he'll probably just eat it.
One of these players is definitely better at cosplaying displeasure. So much so that people theorized he wore a fat suit at one point, and it's not Dame Lillard.
That's right. God, the fat suit era of James Harden. That is it. Mina loses, obviously. We'll take one last break, though. Still to come.
Who decided
Andy
that?
Murray cannot close the deal.
And the U.S. women's soccer team announces who will replace the injured Becky Sauerbrunn as captain. How did I lose?
Well, you know, I think our impartial panel of judges recognize that James Harden, actually a better player than Dame Lillard right now, maybe.
Oh, God.
Just chew on that.
Yeah, certainly has that.
Tonight on SportsCenter at 6 Eastern. Full coverage ahead of Victor Wembanyama's Summer League debut. We're live in Las Vegas. Plus, the latest on Saquon's standoff with the Giants as the deadline for a new contract closes in. And Alex Morgan joins SportsCenter. How the U.S. women are planning to bring home a third straight World Cup title. SportsCenter, 6 Eastern on ESPN.
Happy time, people. Happy 25th birthday to Chase Claypool. The wide receiver started strong as a rookie for the Steelers. You may remember that. You may also remember that he tailed off. So the Bears acquired him last season for what turned out to be the first pick in the second round in the hopes that he could be Justin Fields' #1 receiver. But Chase Claypool caught just 14 passes over 7 games for Chicago in this offseason. The Bears traded the top pick in the draft to the Panthers for a package that includes, yes, an undebatable #1 receiver, DJ Moore. And there is no one on this planet that I trust to have a Chase Claypool take more than Mina Kimes in July. So where does this leave Chase Claypool?
Annoyed if he just turned on PTI, saw us wish him happy birthday, and then enumerate his lack of success recently. I do think that lack of success is amplified by the fact that the Bears did trade a second rounder for him, and right now that trade doesn't look very good even before they acquired DJ Moore. But I'll say this, I think his birthday is relevant. As a reminder, he is just 25 years old. He is not that far removed from looking like a dynamic downfield threat and playmaker in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Still time for him to get back on his feet.
Congratulations, Mapletron, on your birthday being, quote, according to Mina Kimes, relevant. Happy anniversary, Kevin Durant. On this day 13 years ago, Mina, KD almost casually tweeted out that he was staying in Oklahoma City, and we thought that tweet, the tone, the timing of it, that this was going to be his legend, because that same exact day, you may recall, Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh announced to one Michael Wilbon on live TV that they would join forces on the Heat with LeBron. And here, by contrast, was the humble, small-market Kevin Durant foregoing the super team circus. But Durant lost to the Heat in the 2012 finals, and then what happened next, we all know. Golden State, and then your Nets, and now the Suns. These 3 would-be super team circuses, 2 of which have been disastrous so far. And so his legend is the opposite of that day 13 years ago, except for, you know, the whole part about him doing stuff on Twitter.
Well, he's also on Threads, he announced, but he said he's using a burner.
Right.
I think you just kind of laid out KD's villain origin story there. I'm not saying he's a villain per se, but this all does really explain how we got to the point, not just with KD, but with the NBA writ large. Because not only did he say he would stay, but it feels quaint to recall that he actually waited for free agency to leave, and people were mad about it. Now people would be grateful. Oh, wow, thank you, Star. You're waiting for your entire contract to play out. Amazing. What loyalty.
a Hall of Fame poster and a Hall of Fame player, objectively speaking. But happy trails to Andy Murray. When play ended yesterday due to the local curfew, the unseeded Murray was up 2-1 over 5th-seeded Stefanos Tsitsipas. But when the match resumed today, Murray lost the 4th set in a tiebreaker, then lost the 5th set 6-4 to advance to the 3rd round. And Murray has won Wimbledon twice before, yes, but the last time was in 2016. He is now 36, has had multiple hip surgeries, and if the state of my own body right now at age 37 is any indication, his trajectory the rest of the way here is probably going to be a little bleak.
You know, Pablo, as a fellow 37-year-old, normally I would believe that any athlete forced to play into the wee hours is probably going to decline, but I actually think that if they had been allowed to keep playing last night, if not for Wimbledon's 11 p.m. curfew, Murray could have pulled off what would have been an all-time upset and a great story. So I'm blaming Wimbledon for this. We are deprived.
So I have some late-breaking news here, Mina. We have 2 corrections, actually, and they are big ones. And of course, they are both yours. Mina Kimes said that the Reds were 26-1 since playing all 4 rookies in their starting lineup. They're actually 21-6, which is just a tremendous blunder. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is you said you're 37. You're technically how many months, weeks older than me at least? Like 37s, not all 37s are created equal. Like
I'm still 37. That's not a correction. That's
well, I feel like there still is a very important detail that you're missing there, but we are running out of show. Let's go to the big finish. Mark Ingram will join Fox's football studio show, the college football show. How would you sum up his NFL career?
Something we're not likely to see a lot for running backs. Over 10 years, multiple contracts, few and far between, and he's not retired yet. Northwestern has suspended head coach Pat Fitzgerald for 2 weeks after an investigation into hazing allegations. Your thoughts?
I'm glad they seem to be taking it seriously, but Alex Morgan and Lindsey Horan have been named co-captains of the USWNT. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they need the veteran experience because otherwise they got a lot of first-time starters. Christian Pulisic is reportedly leaving Chelsea for AC Milan. Big deal?
It is because Phil and Frank stopped me in the office 30 minutes ago and said it was NBA 2K, Kobe Bryant, Sabrina Ionescu on the covers. Your thoughts?
Love Sabrina. Feel like it should have been AJ Wilson.
Yeah, we're out of time. We'll try to do better the next time. I'm Pablo Torre.
And I'm Mina Kimes. PTI returns on Tuesday. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. And now here's SportsCenter.
Yeah. Hey, what's doing here?